Hello everyone, this is Lakshit Pant. Welcome to the Azure Certification Series. This is Lakshit from Azure Developer Community, and we have started this initiative in collaboration with Microsoft Azure to upskill yourselves in the field of cloud computing. And these workshop and certification journey will help you out to get started with cloud computing and get certified. And we have our expert speaker Shayan here, so I'm just going to okay, yeah, Shayan is here, so he'll help you out. He will just guide you through all to get your Microsoft certified trainings. And we are covering the syllabus offered by Microsoft for the AZ-900 exam, and this is going to be a 3-day bootcamp, and today it's the first day of the Microsoft Azure bootcamp. Now, not wasting much more time, I'll quickly give the stage to Shayan. So hello Shayan.
Hello, Rakshit. Thank you. Hello everyone. My name is Shreyan, and I'll not waste much time on introduction. So I'll just quickly go ahead and share the screen. So let's get started with the workshop. Rakshit, just let me know if you can see the slides.
Yeah, please, not yet.
Okay, just a second. Can you
Good
see it
evening,
now?
Shravan. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, perfect.
Perfect.
I can see this.
All right, guys. So welcome to this event. So the AZ-900 Bootcamp, and my name is Shreyan, and I'll be guiding you on this first day with some basic cloud concepts. So a little more introduction about me. So my name is Shreyan Fernandez. I'm a Gold Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. I've worked in startup. I've interned at KPMG as well as Microsoft as well. And I'm an hackathon enthusiast. So I have participated in a couple of national and international level hackathons. Organized by many tech giants like Microsoft, Amazon, IBM, and so on. So I've won a couple of accolades there, and I'm MTA certified in Python. And yeah, I love to write about my work, whatever I've done, my experiences at hackathons or any other software publishment about open source. And I also love to talk about them in a couple of global platforms. So I'm a global speaker and as well as a blogger. And you can find my blogs on dev.to, or there's another page where I'll give the link later on. So my domains of interest lie in artificial intelligence, blockchain, DevOps, web dev, extended reality, which comprises of both your AR and VR, and then cloud computing, IoT and robotics, and also the low-code platforms like the Power Platform. And I have also given out a couple of connectors for Microsoft Power Platform as well. And that's my LinkedIn handle. So if you guys want to connect with me, so definitely feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And that's my GitHub repository, so you can find my projects and all the other contributions that I do over there. And that last link for dev.to is where you can find my blogs that I've written, and the other link I'll just give it to you towards the end of the session. So that is about me. I'll be a speaker for the next 3 days. So please bear with me for the next 3 days. But anyways, coming to today's agenda. So today I'll be covering a couple of topics. So firstly, what is cloud and what is cloud computing? So let's just look into these things. And then when is cloud optimal, and what is Microsoft Azure, and why is Microsoft Azure used? Where are the Azure services being used? And how are Microsoft Azure core services beneficial to you? So I'll not just talk much about the theory, but I'll be also sharing you my experiences on Microsoft Azure. How have I utilized Azure as a student and as an individual right now? How am I utilizing the services to build something effective? So I'll be talking about that in today's this 1 hour session. And so now moving on with our first concept, what is cloud and what is cloud computing? So in short, cloud is a place which delivers you your online computing resources. For example, let's say you want to have your own server setup. So if you want to do it on your own, so there are a couple of costs that are involved. Let's say you have to have an investment that you'll have to do to buy all this things. For example, the uh, servers that you need, etc., etc. And then also you need to pay during the run of the whole thing. For example, if you have to keep the servers cool, so you need a air conditioning service, you have to buy that again, and then pay for the electricity, pay for the internet, so on and so forth. So let's say you just get it at the click of a button. So that is what cloud does to you. So it actually delivers your the computing resources. The computing resources can be virtual machines, serverless, or containers. We'll just have a brief look into all these three later on. But let's say any computing resource that you can think of, if it is delivered to you over the internet, that's what you call cloud as. Okay, so compute slash server. So what are servers? Basically those teeny tiny things that you have seen in the data centers. Basically, in a very layman term, I can just tell you that you can convert your CPU into a server, right? So that's what servers are. So network community machines that are located in data centers. So now what are data centers? Data center is a place which holds multiple servers. Thousands of servers are kept in your data center. So I'll just show you a picture of a data center later on. And then the next thing that what you can use is the database. So yes, the storage, which can also be done in a database, right? So they are also delivered to you over the internet. So storage or databases that are located on servers in the data center. So I'll just explain a brief thing how things work. But yes, storage can also be given to you over internet, and that also comes under the umbrella of cloud. And then comes this is the latest trend that is going on currently. So that analytics or the intelligence. So you might have heard about this thing like even AI getting delivered to you so over the cloud. So that is also a latest trend that is going on. So you can interact with people in natural ways. You can analyze your data, right? For example, the business analytics, for example, or any other analytics that you want, that also can be done over the internet. So all these things are covered under the wide umbrella of cloud. Now let's see how did the computing evolve over a period of time. So initially there was nothing, just like some random mechanical things. Little bit of electronics came on later, but initially it was a simple mechanical thing that was going on. And then moving ahead, it came somewhere the evolution of electronics, you can say, in 1877, where a grand calculator was founded, right? So that was where the first electronics is recorded in the history. And then it came to a little further from there, from 1877 fast forward to 1939, where AT&T Voder was included. And then again a little more fast forward to 1969, where you can see that the shaky reasoning robot was founded. This is where the boom started. By this time, there was advent of AI. Yes, you heard it right. So the artificial intelligence that we're studying today, which is actually in a boom, that actually didn't come in within like the past decade. It was there from the past century. If you can actually notice that it was there from 1951, where there was a Dartmouth conference. If you might have heard about this, so that is where things started evolving. Although it didn't pick up that pace back then, but it eventually picked up pace after the IBM Watson was founded, right? So the Watson robot, that is where the first thing came up. And yeah, the shaky reasoning robot, by the way, was also there. It was in 1969. And then came the computers. So somewhere between 1969 to 1981, the computers came into existence. And then the first graphical user interface was founded in 1981. So this is how the path came towards what we are in today. And the Sphinx recognition that came in 1992, and the VAM self-driving car, yes, self-driving cars came in 1994. But we have all seen them in today's world. But these came, the roots of the current technology lies somewhere in the past century, that is before 2000. So this is a brief history of how computing came to picture, because without computers you couldn't even have what do you say, thought of computing. So this is how the computing came. And where is it going now? Let's see, where is it going now? So cloud and AI is what we are living today. So big data, compute power, and what we need right now is we have a lot of data that is supposed to be analyzed or to be utilized in a short word, right? So you need huge compute power to accomplish that, because analyzing data is not very easy. There are a lot of constraints with that. You need compute power, you need powerful algorithms, you need a lot of them. So a huge research is going on in this field, and especially the data has been arisen to such a huge extent that we could have never thought of, because of the thanks to the lockdown and the hybrid work mode. For example, how many of you were using Microsoft Teams, for example, before 2019, right? A very less number of people were using. But when it came to lockdown, we were forced to move to the online platform. And that's where, Microsoft Teams is of course hosted, but imagine the amount of data that was being processed behind, right? So somewhere we have taken a big leap in the past 2 3 years when it comes to computing. So now what we are looking forward in this is the increasing the computational power and finding more and more better algorithms. So that is where the next path lies here, and let's see how can cloud help us. Now moving on to the next part, so what are the uses of cloud? So I guess by now you guys are clear of what cloud is, how did it evolve, and what is going on today, what does it give to you, and all those things. Is my pace too fast, or should I go a little faster or a little slower? You can let me know in the chats. And if you guys don't have any more doubts, I'll go on to the next slide. Is it okay if I go to the next slide? I can't see the chat, I guess. Okay, I'm assuming that you guys are okay, and I'll go ahead with the next slide. So now let's see. I've spoken a lot about cloud so far, right? So now let me just emphasize a little more on that. But before going here, let's see what are the problems that are faced if you're not using cloud. Okay. So as I told, there is investment. So let's just say this is capital. There are these terms. The investment term that you can just tell here has actually a name when it comes to cloud computing. So it's called as capital expenditure and operational expenditure. So there are two types of expenditures here. So let's say, what is capital expenditure in the first place? Capital expenditure is something which you do like a one-time investment. For example, buying the servers, buying the required infrastructure, buying renting a room or something like that, right? So all these come under capital expenditure, something that you do once to set up your whole business. That is what you can call as capital expenditure. Next is the operational expenditure. Let's say you have to keep the servers running. You need electricity, you need internet, you need cooling. So whatever you pay as you give the services, right? That's something you can call as operational expenditure. So in short, you can say, as the name suggests, it's this expenditure is especially for operating your services. So whatever cost that is incurred during the operation, that is called as the operational expenditure. So in case if you are planning to provide your own services, so it's a very common thing that both these costs are higher. So right, if you have to, let's say, host your own website, so and you don't want to prefer cloud, so firstly you'll have to set up those servers. Let's say you're hosting your e-commerce site. For example, you have a sale. Let's say Christmas is coming up and you have decided, okay, I'll give a sale on Christmas. So the traffic increases, and accordingly you have to increase the servers as well. So somewhere your cost here is a little more, right? So you just have to keep that servers. Let's say you bought 10 servers, for example. Okay, and that those your normal traffic for this website, the e-commerce website that I'm talking about, is, let's say, around you can cover it up within two servers, right? So now let's say you have decided, okay, you'll start with a sale. So now what happens? You have to increase the server only during the sale, because there might be a chance that the traffic is only high during the sale and not during the other times. So you don't need the other 8 servers with you, right? So you can manage with two. But now what you have done, you have bought these servers and you can't sell them back, right? So somewhere your money is getting wasted. So this is one of the things. The elasticity is not very good. So now let's see what are the benefits when you're planning to host the same e-commerce website on the cloud. Firstly, the security, right? The security on the cloud is very much greater than when you compare to your local hosting. So that is one thing. Ignore the Microsoft Azure thing. I'm just talking about cloud in general. I'll just come to what is Azure, what is Microsoft Azure, and how are things there. But let's just see what are the benefits of cloud. So, firstly, the security is more. Then comes the privacy. Yeah, of course, the cloud provides you with a greater privacy when you compare it with your own thing. Okay, I understand that your own hosting also has a privacy, but at the same time, cloud also gives you that. Then the next point is where you can say, okay, there's a slight change, right? So the availability is more. Let's say if you have hosted something on the cloud, the downtime will be really less. Let's say your internet goes down, because I have used a website which is hosted by a person. He actually has his own server setup and he has hosted a website. Many of the times when I try to download something from that site, there is a message that pops up that the server is offline, right? This is not the case when you go to Amazon or any other service because they have hosted it somewhere on the cloud, right? So this availability is 24 bar 7 and 365 days. So that is something which makes a huge difference for your customers. So the availability is really high. Then comes the scalability. So I just told you a few minutes back that let's say you have this e-commerce website, the e-commerce scenario, where you have decided to have your own sale. So now what happens? Your cloud automatically scales up the servers as you need, right? So let's say your sale time is like you need 10 servers, so that is scaled up automatically. And as your traffic decreases, it again scales down to 2 servers. So you need not pay extra for the 10 servers throughout. So it is like a pay as you go model. So just like your electricity bill, the electricity is generated is huge, but you don't have to pay for all the electricity. You just pay for those amount of units that you have utilized at your home. So this is how even this cloud is. So it's like a pay as you go model. Let's say you used 8 servers for 4 days, right? So you have to pay for this 8 servers only for those 4 days and not throughout your time when the website is hosted. Unlike the case where you have done it in your local home or local room, right? And then along with this, the next thing is the cost. So your cost is automatically lowered. So the capital expenditure is almost minimal right now because you need not buy anything. All you have to do is subscribe to the service that you want. For example, let's say you have hosted your website and now all you have to pay is whatever you're using. So the capex and opex cost, the capital expenditure and the operational expenditure, somewhere here comes down when you compare it with the other scenario where you've hosted it all by yourself. So with this, now let's see who are the major players in the cloud. So I'm pretty sure that many of you might have heard about this name: Microsoft Azure, Amazon AWS, or Google Cloud Platform, or DigitalOcean's cloud. Many other clouds exist. So today we'll be emphasizing more on Microsoft Azure, which is a cloud computing platform that is given to you by Microsoft, right? So Microsoft is a huge player in this. So it has its own data centers. If you see, just in India there are 4 data centers, right? And they might expand again in the near future. So not sure about that, but yeah, there are existing data centers in India as well. And not just in India, you can use the other data centers that are located in other parts of the world as well. So I'll just show you that map in a couple of time. But yes, in short, Microsoft Azure is a cloud computing platform which is delivered to you by Microsoft, right? So let's see what are the services that are now available, and with that I'll also show you what is a data center, how does it look like. So let's say you have seen those fancy data centers around, or where there are those tiny lights blinking and all those things. I'm pretty sure you might have seen, but in case if you haven't, I'll show that to you in some time. So this is how it graphically looks like, the data center infrastructure. Look at the bottom layer. So these are the servers all stacked up and all ready to provide the services. So this is the first data center infrastructure. This is how the servers are stacked up one upon the other. And then what are the services that you get? So the infrastructure services and the platform services. We'll just talk about this in a while in detail. What is infrastructure service and what is platform service, right? But infrastructure service mainly includes compute, storage, and networking. So in compute, to be very precise, virtual machines or your containers or the Kubernetes services. And in storage, when it comes to Azure, you have blob, you have queues, you have files, you have disks. And when it comes to networking, you have virtual network, load balancer, DNS, express route, traffic manager, VPN gateway, and app gateway. So these are the couple of infrastructure services that are there. Then looking into the security and management of security center, Azure portal, AAD, Azure Active Directory, multi-factor authentication, automation, key vault, and a lot more other things. Hybrid cloud, as you can see on my right hand side. So there are these many things. And then if you have to look into
Hello,
application,
hello.
yeah,
Hey, Shreyan. Just
yeah,
wanted
Lakshmi.
to let you know, like your slides were freezed.
Okay, which slide are you able to see right now?
Right now it's fine, but earlier it was freezed.
Okay, okay, fine, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was the previous slide that I was on, and after this, I've moved on to this slide, what you can see right now. Okay, so you have compute services, you have integration, like API management, Azure Logic Apps, so on and so forth. And then there is IoT. If you guys are into Internet of Things, if you want to have your sensor telemetry into the cloud, even those platforms are also available to you. IoT Hub, there is Stream Analytics, and there are a lot more services. I'll show them all when I'm showing the practical part of this session, right? So we'll quickly wrap up with the theory for that. And then the intelligent section where you have cognitive services, bot services, ML Studio, the data service where you have SQL database hosted, and then Azure Cache for Redis, then many other things, right? And then application platform, your web apps, mobile apps, cloud services, functions app, which is serverless compute option for you. Even all those things are available, right? So I'll just talk about this in detail when I go to the cloud and I show you how to use cloud. But for now, just know that there are these many, anything that you can think of can be done on a cloud platform. To be very precise, Microsoft Azure for today's thing. So now let's see how it looks like. So you need to have an Azure account set up. So if you are a student, you can use your
Hello,
own.
Shane. Again, it's freezed. Yeah, now it's fine. Okay, now it's
Okay,
fine.
there might be a slight latency from my side. I'm sorry. Yeah. So firstly, you need to have an Azure account for that, and then you need to have an active subscription. So now, if you are an full-time college enrolled student, so you can use your college email ID and get $100 for free. As I told you, you need to pay for the services that you use, right? So it's not a free thing that you can avail, but of course, you need to pay something. So usually, clouds, if you are a working professional, you can have your credit card linked to your Azure account, and then you can have a pay as you go subscription. So in case if you're a student, so you can have your own student subscription, which is a complimentary service by Microsoft. You can have your email IDs and you'll have your $100 for free. You can try out all the services till $100 gets over, right? Or till the specific time period. If I'm not wrong, those were for a month when I was using, but I'm not really sure what is the thing right now. So you can also get your hands dirty on this particular cloud platform by playing around with all the services. Yes, mind that there are a couple of free services as well. For example, IoT Hub, for example, has a free subscription. I'll just show that to you in a while. So then comes resource group, and then these are the resources. So basically, anything that you create on cloud is called a resource. So this is a term that you must be familiar by now. So let's say you create a SQL database on Microsoft Azure. That's called a resource. And let's say you're working on a project and you have to have a SQL database and as well as a web app. So these are the two different resources that you create. Let's say you work on multiple projects at a time, but you don't want to get confused that, okay, I had used IoT Hub for project one, I had used SQL for project two, I had used web app for project two. So now there are three services. So just to make sure that you don't get confused, you can keep them in a container like a bucket, right? You have different buckets. So these buckets are called as resource groups. So firstly, the Azure account that you get, and then the subscription. This is like your payment mode. How are you paying? What are the subscription that you are having? For example, if you are going for an OTT platform, you have different kinds of subscriptions, right? Premium, that, this, whatnot. So which kind of subscription are you using? Right? That is something you have to show in the second step. Then comes the resource groups, where which are like your buckets that hold multiple resources relating to the same project, and then the resources that you create. uh, is my screen moving? Yes, perfect. So now let's see. I spoke about cloud and I spoke about all those things. So now let's see what are the types of clouds that are available in the market, right? So one is public, one is hybrid, and one is private. So these are three types of clouds that are available. Now, firstly, let's see what is a public cloud. So these are often provided to you by third-party providers, available to anyone over the public internet, and it scales quickly and conveniently. So one example that you can think of is what we are speaking about right now, that is Microsoft Azure. So let's now see what is a private cloud. I won't go to hybrid cloud right now, because somewhere if I explain about public and private, so you can of course understand what does a hybrid cloud look like, right? So I'm sure that you guys are very familiar with what public cloud by now means, right? So let's say anyone who's providing you, so third party provider, public cloud is provided to you by a third party provider. It is accessible to anyone over the internet, right? The public internet that we use. So you need not have your own network or like your own VPN or something like that to connect. So that is something which what I mean by it's any accessible by public internet. And then comes the scalability. It can scale quickly and conveniently. Next comes the private cloud, which is very much managed by a single person. So it is not accessible to everyone over the internet. You need to have a network, a virtual private network, or something in that sort in order to access that particular cloud or the network. And it has somewhere a greater amount of security. Doesn't mean that private clouds lack security, but yes, the amount of security that is there here is slightly much greater, because of course there is a thing, right? Anyone who's authorized is only allowed inside this network, whereas public cloud can be accessed by anyone, right? So that is one of the reason why you can say that there's a greater security control over the private cloud. And then the third thing is it requires a traditional data center staffing and maintenance, because you're not taking the service from any other service provider, the a cloud service providers. You're not going to them, you're handling your own cloud all by yourself. This is somewhere that first scenario that I was talking about, where you need to have your own server stacked up, you need to provide your own cooling, so on and so forth. So that is what I mean by private cloud. So now you can see public cloud and private cloud is clear. Somewhere in between this, right, is your hybrid cloud. It can be like, let's say you have a website, okay, and you plan that, okay, I'll use the web service hosting by a third party, but I want the database to be under my control. Okay, so this is where you have to mix a combination of public cloud and a private cloud. So for example, the data part you're handling, you're collecting all the clients data, you're not giving it to anyone else. There are many reasons why you can do this. Firstly, because this happens because of trust. So you don't trust the person who's providing you the data. There might be many other reasons, but trust is something that you can think about. So you have to handle your own data, but of course you need the hosting of the website through the third party. So this is where you combine the both power of public cloud and private cloud, and majorly used by many organizations. For example, this is used by organizations to be very specific. Shared security responsibility, of course, half security is handled. For example, the website security is handled by the provider, the cloud provider, and the database security is handled all by you. So it helps to maintain a tighter controls over sensitive data and the processes. So this is where you can see. So there are three types of clouds: public, private, and hybrid. So somewhere in between public and private lies the hybrid cloud. Now, with that, if this thing is clear, okay, let me just see if the slide has moved. Yes, right. So if this thing is clear, let's just now move on to the next slide, which talks about um, SAS, PAS, and IaaS. So this is somewhere this diagram clearly explains you what are the three types of computing services that are available. So first is software as a service. For example, your Dropbox, Google Drive, Wix, and Salesforce. Platform as a service, Google App Engine and Microsoft Azure. So this is a platform as a service thing, and this is majorly used by software developers for developing their own softwares on the cloud. And then infrastructure as a service, where you can have your databases hosted and so on and so forth. So right, AWS, Google Compute Engine, all those things. So who uses these IaaS things? Majorly used by the IT administrators. So the control here in the IaaS service is more, and in SaaS it is very less, right? So you don't have much control in a Google Drive, if you have noticed. So all you can do is you can upload something. You can tell, okay, this is I'm just allowing these users to have. You can add their email ID, so on and so forth, right? So you don't have much control. You don't know how is your data getting stored. So if you come to the next base, you can know, okay, how is the data getting passed onto that place. So if you come to the next step, that is the IaaS, that is where you can actually see how is the data getting stored, where is it getting stored, how is the things happening, what is the security that you're supposed to provide. So all those are handled by the IT admins, and then the software developers use the cloud in between. So again, little more explanation on that. What is IaaS? Servers and storage, networking, firewalls and security, data center physical plant slash building. This is something your IaaS is about. And then including the IaaS, on top of that, there's a next layer called platform as a service, where you have development tools, operating systems, and all the other things. And then finally, the software as a service, where you just have the hosted applications. Now you can see here on premises the private cloud. For example, what is IaaS here? What do we manage, and what do the cloud provider manage in an IaaS service? So your compute, networking, and storage is what your cloud provider manages. So he hosts the things for you, and you just utilize your virtual machine, operating systems, runtime, data, and access. Just a second, let me see if my slides are freezed. Okay, they're not freezed. Perfect. So, virtual machine, operating systems, runtime applications, data, and access is something you manage, but your compute system, your networking, your storage is managed by the cloud provider. Now, let's say in platform as a service, you just have access over the data and access and also the applications. Runtime, OS, VM, and all the other sections are handled by your cloud provider. In software as a service, you just have the access to your data, and rest all the other things are managed by your cloud provider. For example, Google Drive, if you or OneDrive in that case. So all these things, you just have your software on top, where you can upload your files, your videos, your any other rare files, for example. But your application, the OneDrive, is not managed by you. Your cloud provider manages it for you. The runtime is also managed by the cloud provider. The OS that is required is also managed by a cloud provider. So this is how you can differentiate between IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So don't worry if you have not exactly followed this. Even when I had seen this for the first time, I had no idea. But you will get used to these terms as you understand more and more. So then comes the management groups, the subscriptions, the resource groups, and the resources. So this is how the hierarchy looks like. So nothing much to explain here. This is more of a theoretical concept. Now let's see what are the available regions where your Microsoft Azure is currently placed. So as you can see, there are three things on this diagram. So let me just see whether my slide has moved. Yeah. So as you can see on your screen right now, so there are three different kinds of dots. One is a dotted circle, one is a circle with a small star in between, and one is a fully blue circle. So the fully blue circle is your available region. So basically, these regions are already available for the users and they can host their services there. The announced regions is the one in the dotted one. For example, Poland Central, Spain Central, Qatar Central, New Zealand North, all these things are still announced and not in place. Then the availability zones are the ones in the, for example, UK, South, North Europe. So all these are the availability zones. This is an old data. The newer data might be a little different from this, but this is just to show you that these are the number of places where you can host your data on Microsoft Azure. So you can utilize a server that is in China East. You can utilize a server that is in Canada East, or that you can utilize a server which is in West India, Central India, or South India. There is no compulsion that you're supposed to restrict yourself to the Central Indian server. No. But there is a catch here. It is always preferred that you use a server which is nearer to your location. But it is not a compulsory thing, but it is just a safer safety measure that we take. Now, coming to the next side, you might have a question here. What if the data center burns up, right? So, what if there is a breach in this particular data center? Yes, so that is where you have the Azure. Azure comes up with a more security. So, before going there, I'll just show you. There is availability zones, which is in this pattern. So, moving on, right. So, let's say you've hosted one copy of your website in an Indian server. Let's say by some reason there is a data breach or something that is happening, so you won't lose your data because this particular thing are paired up. So there's a region pair. So this is where your data is getting kind of like a copy, right? Your data is getting copied to various other regions, so that if by chance one region has any disaster, right, there might be an earthquake, there might be any other reason where a data center might have a chance of getting destroyed. So your data shouldn't get destroyed because Microsoft holds this thing, right, the responsibility. So This is why they have created something of this sort where the data gets replicated and stored in case there is a problem in one of the data center. So the data gets destroyed and this copied data will be again restored back. Okay, as I told you, this is how a resource group looks like, but I won't talk about much in detail here because I want to show this to you in real life. So, billing account, billing profiles will be different, and then the invoice sections, and then at the lower bottom you can find an Azure subscription. So, if I have to move up the tree, so firstly, let's say you have Azure subscription, multiple Azure subscriptions on your particular account. So, not all of them are equally having the resources. So one might have a lower resource count and the other might have been used extensively. So you will be billed for the only particular thing. So you have Azure subscriptions as a branch, and on top, if you go, you have an invoice section. And again, if you go on top, you'll have a billing profile, separate billing profile, and on the top will be a billing account. So if you go to a billing account, you can see which particular Azure subscription has costed you how much for which service that you have used, right? So everything is detailedly explained in this hierarchy. And yes, your billing profile will have your invoice and your payment methods. Usually the payment methods that we use is your credit card. Yeah, so this is again a root management group, and then the human resources, for example, IT has this thing, marketing has this thing, early access subscription, so on and so forth. So this is how some organizations flow chart is. For example, so they have for developers they have given a different subscriptions, and then for apps they have a different thing, and so on and so forth. So now this is all the theoretical part that I had to explain you. Yes, we're finally approaching to the end of the theory. So now I want to talk somewhere how have I utilized Azure, right? So because I've just spoken a lot of theory, it might be seeming that okay, what are you talking so much about? I am not even getting something. So now let's see with the real use case how have I used Microsoft Azure. So this was from one of my recent project that I had worked on. Let me just see if the screen is visible. Right. Okay, it is visible. So this is from a recent project that I had worked on. So where I had to use Power BI, had to have a telemetry service from my left hand side. So just confirm whether you can see my cursor. So on the left hand side, this green thing, whatever you can see, is a sensor that I had placed. So this sensor was streaming data to cloud on this particular platform, the IoT Hub. And from there, I had a stream analytics and then many other insights, and then the blob storage, and then they had a backend server setup, and then a web app. So this is where on this UI web app is where the users could have seen what is going on, the 3D models. I had a built up a 3D model, which actually was a bike, and you could have monitored all the parameters, let's say the battery, the fuel level, the tire pressure, and every other thing on a 3D model. So this sensors were mounted on the bikes, let's say the tire, the fuel tank, the battery, everywhere I had mounted all those sensors, and they were streaming the direct data to my cloud, and I was displaying them on the cloud in a 3D model, right? So let's say a bike's 3D model was there, and the tire pressure was seen. Okay, let's say this much psi, and then the battery level is this much percentage on your battery, on top of the battery, and then the fuel level. Okay, this is how much liters of fuel is spending, or something like that. So I had done that on this UI web app. So you can see the workflow here, that this is how it was coming up, and then from the stream analytics, just to see whether there's any anomaly in this thing. So I had run my own algorithms, I had processed the data, and I displayed it as a dashboard on Power BI. That was for one thing. And the next thing that I'd used Azure was for the Azure Health
Hello,
Vault.
yeah, hey Shreyan, your screen is freeze most of the time. Can you please check this out?
Okay, okay. Is it okay
Like,
now?
yeah, is it it's fine right now, but yeah, it's getting freeze most of the time.
Okay, just give me a moment. Okay, I've just fixed it. So, getting back, is my screen visible, the Azure Health Bot screen? Lakshit, can you confirm?
Yeah, it's visible. It's visible.
Hello?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. Okay. So moving on to the next place where I had used Microsoft Azure for my particular project. This is you can find this as a learning path if you guys want to try this project out. It is live on Microsoft Learn, so you guys can head on to that platform and you can try this out. However, I built this particular thing. So I had a bot which was actually collecting data from the patients, and it had to store it in a database, right? So this is a pipeline that I have followed. So firstly, I had my monitor, sorry, the platform, the Azure Health Bot, and the data was connected to the database. Now, this is not as easy as I tell, because you cannot directly interact with the database. You need someone in between, and this someone in between is called the API. So I had built my own API using the Azure Logic app. So it was a simple drag and drop interface where I had to just drag in a couple of things and I had to do some operations in order to build an API. I had not even used a single line of code, or you can say it was a zero code thing that I had done. I had built an API without even coding. So, right, if you again, if there is someone out there who thinks, okay, coding is a mandate for me in order to get started with the cloud, so definitely no, that is wrong. You don't need any coding language. It is better to have, but it is not actually necessary that you need to be an expert at coding, like a five-star guy on any coding platform, something like that. No need. You just need to have some basic concepts. If you don't have, even that is fine. You can clearly go ahead and get started with development. So I had built a simple API here using the Azure Logic app, and then I used the service of SQL database on Microsoft Azure. So when you create a SQL resource, you get two things. One is the SQL server, next is the SQL database, and through that I had to go into the server and then access my database. So the post and get requests were going on from the API to the server. And on the other side, you can see that there was a data connection between the Azure Health Bot and the Logic apps. So this is how I created a gateway between my health bot and the database. So let's say the user gives in the age. So now the age is let's say 25. Okay. The age again, let's say it travels through the API, the Azure Logic app. It says, okay, this is a post request. So let me just post it to the database. So it goes ahead and triggers the post API. In this API, it goes to the SQL server and it sees, okay, the parameters are matching. So let me just put in the data or insert the data into the table. So this is how it goes. And let's say the user is supposed to be greeted. Let's say, thank you so and so for and your appointment is booked with this particular doctor so and so. Okay, so this thing again is supposed to be fetched from the database, right? So again, from the SQL database, your bot requests, okay, give me this particular patient's data. Okay, it goes again back to the database, it searches for that data, and again it comes back through the API, it again back to your Azure Health Bot, and your data has been displayed. So this is how this workflow was developed. If you want to know more, head on to this learning path. You'll get to know whatever I've done. Then the another place where I used block. Let me just see again. Okay, this particular slide where you can see blockchain workbench. Of course, this particular service is now no more in place because Microsoft had to decommission it a couple of months back because of some issues. So now anyway, there is another um, service that is offered by consensus on Microsoft Azure itself. So if you are a blockchain enthusiast, yes, you have a place in cloud again. Yeah, you can use the Microsoft Azure and you can use the consensus service that is already there and host your own blockchain uh, infrastructure. So this is how I had used. So again, a SQL database to hold a couple of data, but again, blockchain on the other side to hold a few more data that I wanted to be on cloud and on my blockchain, and the custom vision where it was using a face recognition technique here, so that was also inculcated on the cloud itself. So again, all these things I had, there was nothing for me to keep in my laptop or in my CPU. It was all hosted on cloud. All I had to do is a simple click and everything was happening on the cloud. So this is how I had utilized cloud for my projects. Again, that is the same project that I had shown before. So I had used my another service, for example, the spatial anchors, which is actually a service if you are looking into the extended reality site, so you can use the spatial anchors. Yes, cloud provides you with everything: blockchain, web development, app development, mixed reality, or anything like that. You can have all those services on cloud. So after this, okay, I'll come back to this, but now let's switch back to Azure and show you how things work in real life. I know you might be bored with all the theory that I had just shown you till now, but now it's time to go ahead and see what does Microsoft Azure look like in real life. Right. So let me just share this screen. Um, can you see the portal now? Lakshit, can you confirm if my portal is visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Perfect. So this is how your Microsoft Azure portal looks like. If you guys are enrolled in a university, again, as I told, you can just go ahead and subscribe and use this cloud in no time. But this is how it looks like. All you have to do is go to your any web browser and just type portal.azure.com, and you'll be landing on this particular web page. Actually a web page before this, because then you'll have to log in and then you'll have to create your own account. So this is not a hard task. Go there and put your email ID, and it will show you what are the next steps that you have to do, right? And once you have logged in, so let's say you can, for example, I can see the number of credit, the amount that I have left in this particular cycle. Of course, this is something, a benefit that you get as a student ambassador, right? So this credits that you can see is credited to you as a student ambassador. If not this, let's say you are a student, you have $100 credits, so that will show you, okay, you have these many dollars left in your usage. So now, as I told you, resource groups is something that holds your data. For example, let's see that I had done something here for one of the projects. So the Quorum Dev project, for example, let's say I've utilized a virtual machine, right? I've utilized a network interface. I've had a public IP address, I've had a virtual network and a disk. So all these things are pertaining to one project, that is this Quorum Dev project that I'm working on, right? So these resources are just held in this resource group. So this bucket is for this project, project number one, that is a Quorum Dev project. But at the same time, I'm working on another project that is a micro hack. So let's see what micro hack has. So it has a custom vision service, it has a SQL server, it has a custom vision service again, and it has a SQL server. So this is the micro hack. So you can see I can just click on these resource group names, which basically is something like a different project. So these are the number of projects that I'm working on currently. So Azure Demo is one. Azure Demo 1 is a different project. BIL Hack is another one. BMESI is another one. So this is how your resource groups work. Now, this is something now we are clear about what are resource groups, right? So what is a resource then? Okay, resource group is something. So what is a resource? For example, if I go into Quorum Dev again, right? Or SA technical onboarding, for example. So you can see there is a static web app here, right? So this static web app that I've created is a resource. So if you want to see what is there here, so I can go here and you can see that this is the website that you can see. So happy mushroom, blah, 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 dot Azure static web apps dot net. So now this thing is hosted on my static web app, right? So you can see that I've done something here, a simple here I've written something, I've written my GitHub handle and so on and so forth. So this is your static web app, but this is a resource which is present in my essay technical onboarding resource group. So now let's see what are the other resources that you can create. So to do that, it is very simple. You can type your resource name here. Let's say if you want to create an IoT hub, you can just go here and search IoT hub and you can get it. Let's,
Hello. Yeah.
yeah,
So sorry to interrupt you in between, Shreyan, but if you can zoom in a little bit, it would be much better for the student to understand.
okay, sure. Is it okay this much?
Yeah,
You
this
want me
is
to zoom in a
perfect.
little?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So if you can go to this top search bar here on the top, and let's say I type IoT. For example, I want to create a simple IoT resource. We'll just see what are these resources in tomorrow's bootcamp. But for now, let's say just imagine, okay, just consider this is a resource, something that you're creating. Okay, like a simple web application. So you can go here and you can click on create a new. Let's say you're not sure what resources you want. Okay, you just have to figure it out. Let's say you have decided, okay, I will use something for my IoT related project, but I'm not sure which IoT uh, service is offered by Microsoft. So in that case, let's say you have a confusion. On top, you can see here a button which says create a resource. You can just click on that and go to this Internet of Things section. Now you can see various types of services that are available to you. For example, IoT Hub that I was talking about, IoT Central Application, IoT Hub Device Provisioning Service, so on and so forth. Not just these, but there is something called as a marketplace where many third-party services are also available. So let's see what are the services in the marketplace that are available. For example, MongoDB has something here hosted. I'm pretty sure you must have heard about MongoDB, which is again not from Microsoft, but it is a third party application that is available on Azure for you. And this is something that is hosted by Microsoft. And there are other things here. If you can see Redis Labs, for example, this is something that is hosted by Redis on Microsoft Azure, not a service that is handled by Microsoft, right? Foghorn Systems has given you something called as Foghorn Edge Device Manager, so on and so forth. So HoloLight GmbH has given you something here. Birla Soft Limited has given you something here, and Nine Altitudes has given out a service related to IoT, so on. So you can find many more things, and this is not just for one IoT resource, but this is for every resource that you can think about. So if I just go to create a resource again, and let's say I will choose for web, right? So these are the, as I was talking about logic app, so this is logic app, and then application insight, so on. Let's say you're still not satisfied, you just feel okay, this is not something that I want, there is something that I'm missing, let me just see what are the other things. So you can go to marketplace again and see what are the thing. PL Desk has given you WordPress edition, Jetware has given you WordPress LEMP max performance. Then Adobe has given you something, Adobe Experience Manager, which is again you can subscribe here, custom pricing for 1 year term, 2 year term, and so on and so forth, right? So this is how you can utilize Microsoft Azure. Not just services are offered by Microsoft, but also by various other organizations throughout the globe are also offered on this particular cloud. So all you have to do is you have to go to the marketplace. Now, since you have understood what is a resource, so all these things are the resources. So if you go to mixed reality, you have these many resources: Azure Digital Twins, object anchors, remote rendering, and so on. So let's say you are not sure how to use this resource. Now, this is the next problem. Initially, when I was a learner, I didn't know how to use IoT Hub. So I didn't even know, okay, what is a thing. For example, if I go to IoT Hub and I click on create, give me a second, it is loading. Okay, if I just click on IoT, and if I just click on create, so it comes up with a fancy form, right? So I didn't even know what this form looks like and what does it even mean. For example, subscription, I told you what does subscription mean, right? For example, my subscription that I have is a Visual Studio Enterprise, but maybe if you're a student, it will be like a student subscription, or if you're a individual who has linked their own credit card, you will be having it here as like a pay as you go service. So it depends. So for example, mine here is a Visual Studio Enterprise. Now, by now you know what is a resource group. So let's say I'm using IoT Hub device provisioning service for a particular thing. So I can create a new resource group XYZ, right? I can create it. Or if I have to, if I've already created a service, I mean a resource hub, and I have to put it in that. For example, I let's say choose it in the Azure demo, right? So this is the particular project that I'm putting this a resource in. It's just like a ball. You're picking a ball, you're putting it in a particular bucket, right? So I've put it in the Azure demo bucket, and let's say the name, what you want to give it a name. So let's say Bootcamp Day 1. Okay, my bad. Okay. And which region? I just showed you a couple of regions that are available on the map. So these are the same regions, right? So let's see, I'm somewhere located near Central India. So I just put it as a Central Indian region. Next, let's go to the networking. How should be the networking like? Should it be a public access or should it be private access? If you choose on private access, again, you get a couple of things to configure. So just to keep it simple, I'll choose public access, right? And then all networks, you can just learn more about that again. So let's go to the management. Now here the pricing tier is somewhere you can choose, right? So you have S1 tier, S2 tier, so on and so forth. So you can choose which kind of service pricing tier that you want. You can go to this link. Okay, I think you can see a different tab now. You can come here, you can go to pricing table. Let me just check. Yes, so this is the pricing table that you can see. Standard tier, there's a free, as I told you, couple of services come with a free version. So you can just use it for your prototypes, so on and so forth. So for a simple project, not for an organizational level, although, but you can use it for a simple prototype. So a number of messages that you can receive, message meter size, so on. So if you want a standard one tier, so there is something different, basic, what are the features available. This is like a catalog, what is offered to you in a particular state. Let's say I want to see it in Indian national rupee, so I can choose that. So it's a free one. So 2887 for the S1, 28,000 for S2, 2,88,000 for the S3, right? So it is different here. Again, the number of messages that you receive and get is again different, but of course there's a free tier as well in IoT Hub. So again, coming back to the cloud, so that is how you can decide what is the pricing that you want. And then again, move ahead to tags, right? So you can give a tag here. And then finally, you'll get whatever you have given. Let's say I had chosen the subscription group as Visual Studio Enterprise, resource group as Azure Demo, region was Central India, and the name of this particular service was Bootcamp Day 1. Disaster recovery, as I told you, if there is a disaster, if there's an earthquake, your data center gets destroyed, do you want a copy of that to be in another place? Yes, I've given it as yes, so it is giving me a yes here. And in public access, private endpoint connections are none. Once you have finalized all this, you can just click on this create option and it creates your resource. For example, when I had started my journey, I didn't know what does this mean. So what I had done is I had clicked on this particular thing. For example, there is a documentation around, so which is called the Microsoft Docs. If you want it to be in a much more like a tutorial way, there is something called as Microsoft Learn. So if you guys click on this tab here, that link, you will be coming to this tab, that is a Microsoft Learn page. So you can see Microsoft Learn and an introduction to IoT Hub, right? Produced in partnership with someone like this. Uh, you can see what are the things, introduction, what is IoT Hub, how it works, and then finally a knowledge check. So you can learn more about how to deploy things on cloud, how to use these resources on Microsoft Learn again. So this is how you can utilize cloud, how you can get started with your cloud. So there is again a resource for AI plus machine learning. There is something for blockchain. So here there are things, for example, here you can see NVIDIA GPU is also available to you, right? A very powerful GPU can also be taken. Let's say you are processing thousands of images, right? Your PC might not support. So simply go ahead, get a GPU, get things done. It is as easy as that, right? So for anything in this case, again, this is how you can get started with the cloud. Again, coming back to the slide. So there is a final slide that I have to share, because now you might tell, hey, Shreyan, you told us so many things. So there is a thing that I might forget, whatever you have taught us so far, right? Whatever you discussed so far. So again, there is a solution to you here, a very good solution. You can go to Microsoft Learn. I'll just provide you with those links, that particular learning path. You can go to Microsoft Learn and just type Azure Fundamentals. You'll get the first learning path, that whatever you have covered today, all those resources are already available to you. So you can head over to that platform. Or there is a Learn TV. Let's say you want to watch a video, you don't want to study, right? So there is a Learn TV platform there itself, the Learn platform that I have just shown you when I was talking about IoT Hub. You can go there and you can create your own, you can sign in, you'll have your own profile, and you can study whatever you want. So with that, I would like to conclude on today's day one of this bootcamp, where we have discussed about cloud, Microsoft Azure, the services, the resources, all those other things. So let's see what resources match for what use case in tomorrow's session, right? So with that, I would like to hand this over back to Lakshit. So thanks a lot for having me on this session. Over to you,
Yeah,
Lakshit.
so yeah, so thank you, Shane, for the amazing first day of the boot camp. It was really insightful, and the demo that you showed up. I hope you guys got the things. And Shane, the only thing that I just wanted to mention is we have multiple glitches in between. So if you can just share me the slides so that I can just flow these slides through the mail of these registered participants. Okay,
Sure.
so that they can revise all these concepts today and they can just come over tomorrow for some better fit, some better understanding of these concepts, right? So yeah, guys, so this is all about today's session, and let's meet you all on on tomorrow's day 2 of bootcamp, guys. So see you then and keep practicing. Happy learning, guys. So thank you, Shayan, for joining in. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.